Day 239 of the Ukrainian war map, also known as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Juzzy here, and today is another quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine today. And as always, I like to start off with those Russian military losses, so as of the 20th of October. So in the last 24-hour reporting period, roughly an additional 400 Russian military personnel losses. Then it's been quite a big day for Russian hardware losses as well. So armored combat vehicles, a whopping 20 Russian losses. In terms of tanks, an additional massive 13 losses. Artillery, 9, and 1 chopper officially there as well, and I'll get into that shortly. But first of all, we'll start off back on the main map here. And as we sometimes do, we'll start just outside of the Ukrainian borders into Belgorod, where there was a fire at a Belgorod substation here. Now, this video makes it look like a bit of a light show, and it's true to say that this city has been having some ongoing power issues at various different points for some time now. In fact, just a few days ago, Russia had launched multiple missiles from here, which were intended for Kharkiv just across the border, but some of the missiles malfunctioned, and one of which malfunctioned and fizzled out and landed in the Belgorod thermal plant itself, causing some havoc there. So Russia's flight path choice, the flight path, it's not really great for their missiles, or their fighter planes for that matter. Then we'll move across to the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, a little bit further over central north there. So a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile is intercepted near a power plant just north of Kyiv. And that photo right there is a direct air intercept. Now, the next bit of footage here is of a Russian missile intercepted by Ukrainian forces. This video is said to be in Kyiv recently, but also said to be by the new U-Boot German Iris-T air defense system, though I cannot confirm that yet. And I'm certainly trying my hardest to confirm the placement of this new German Iris-T defense system. It's the first of 4 that are being sent to Ukraine. It's likely being placed here in Kyiv or somewhere in the south like Mykolaiv. Then we'll move across to Kharkiv. Excuse the accent. Can't even pronounce that. So in the Kharkiv Oblast, Russia hit several settlements, injuring a 70-year-old man and destroying a grocery store in the process too. And also in Kharkiv, captured weaponry. So there was a captured UR-77 mine-clearing vehicle somewhere in the forest of Kharkiv. Now these puppies can certainly come in handy as they accelerate the process of safely pushing through minefield-laden areas in contested spaces. And all in all, the Ukrainian armed forces have captured 15 of these babies and destroyed an additional 5 as well. Then we'll move across to the Donbass area. We'll zoom right in here. A few things happening here to say the least. So obviously one of the next strategic points for Ukraine to liberate is Crimea right here. Now the Ukrainian forces appear to have the decent capability of hitting Russian convoys traveling down the P66 highway at will. So the P66 is this yellow main highway indicated there. So this footage here is taken by a Ukrainian drone that relayed the coordinates back to the HIMARS system to shoot out the convoy. And the footage is located just south of Crimea, in fact, right at this settlement here, right next to the highway, the settlement of Stara Krasnyanka. In fact, if I'm to get real specific, it's just right there where the convoy was taken out. It was parked just off the highway, hiding its goodies, but it was already spotted by the Ukrainian drone, with coordinates already relayed back to command for the strike. We truly are in the age of drone warfare. Then we'll move a little bit further down in the Donbass region, where the Russian forces have been given it all they've got in east of Soledar still, and obviously Bakhmut too, but also this settlement a little bit further south, Kurdyamivka. But largely, these offensives on the Russian side were repelled by the Ukrainian forces again. In fact, the Ukrainian forces said that the Russian forces have been attempting these, let's call them counterattacks at this point, Russian counterattacks at the exact same locations as before, even at the exact same times. There probably is nothing more satisfying than an interestingly predictable enemy in time of war. Then we'll move across down to the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, so a little bit further there, where Russia struck an industrial company and energy infrastructure in the Kryvyi Rih district, right over there. There is serious damage, but no casualties have been reported. Now, I might actually quickly mention here, Ukraine was previously a net exporter of energy to, say, Western European countries. But they've recently had to stop this to fulfill their own energy needs. Oh, and just nearby this location in Zaporizhia, in fact, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, or more specifically, the settlement that's right next to it or part of it, Enerhodar. So, interestingly, Enerhodar residents report that Russians are leaving the city, looting and loading military trucks with household appliances and other valuables. And this information is fairly consistent with the next location right to the west of it, so Kherson, where even Russian state media seems to be preparing its viewers for the Ukrainian liberation of Kherson soon. So starting off in Kherson, in fact the city, there is in fact reports of heavy gunfights in the Seminsky district. So if we move in really close, this is around here, if we can find it, there it is, Shuminsky district, which is effectively an outer suburb of the downtown Kherson. Now, this is either Ukrainian armed forces or activated partisans in the region. There's a bit of an information blockage as current, but we'll see soon. Either way, it seems counteroffensives are clearly very much alive from the Ukrainian side here. Now also, for the last 2 days, Russian FSB and commanders, police and occupation officials have been escaping from this city to the east bank below the river. Although conversely, some additional freshly drafted Russian troops are said to be moved into the river, into the northern bank. They're above the river, potentially as cannon fodder to attempt a slowdown of any Ukrainian advances. But I really want to talk about Russia's potential exit strategy here. So, where Russia may stage a false flag attack on the Kakhovka Dam, or the hydroelectric dam, to cover their retreat and prevent a delay from Ukrainian forces advancing across the river to make even further gains. Now, if Russia were to take out the Kakhovka hydroelectric dam here, it will flood downstream, causing a catastrophe. And it is very much considered a war crime by the UN because of its direct impact on civilian life. But I think Putin is faced with an impossible choice here, because the dam supplies fresh water to the Crimean Peninsula just below. And without the dam, right there, the Crimean Peninsula would be dry as a bone. It's already suffering from water shortages, which basically means it impacts everything down there. For example, economically, ecologically, demographically, so mass migration out of Crimea, and agriculturally as well, amongst probably many other examples of affecting a society with no water. So it turns out that Ukraine's mainland is the lifeblood for the Crimean Peninsula, after all. Oh, and probably just inside of the 24-hour reporting period, The Ukrainian armed forces shot down a Russian Ka-52 helicopter in the Beryslav district of Kherson. So, in fact, right there where I'm pointing at the moment. I did actually briefly mention this one yesterday as an unconfirmed takedown, as the news was so fresh at the time of recording, but it has gone through with today's Russian military losses right there, as we can see. And I hate to do this to you guys if you watch my videos, but another day, another T-62 captured in the Kherson region. So these things are up to 60 years old and have been captured in such great numbers in this region alone in the last 4 weeks or so that it just boggles the mind. Russia expected a counteroffensive in Kherson for months, as early as July, when they were, you could say, warned about it. So why did they send all of their oldest equipment like tanks down here? I don't know. Now, although these old tanks seem like a dime a dozen, don't you worry, Ukraine will still put them to good use. Then we'll move across quickly to Mykolaiv. We've got some after footage of a cruise missile arrival in Mykolaiv today. Luckily, no one got injured. The Russian forces army spent more than $1 million for this haul if they used a Kalibr cruise missile, and more than $10 million USD dollars if they used one of their quote-unquote highly accurate KH-101 missiles. Either way, that's just one expensive hole in the ground. Then we'll move across to some news where the deputy envoy of Russia to the UN denies export of Iranian drones to Russia, and it threatened to review its relationship with the UN Secretary Office if the UN sends experts to study these Russian drones that were shot down in Ukraine. Which is basically Russia admitting they did indeed import Iranian military drones. Otherwise, why are they so worried about them being inspected by the UN? Now, this whole issue of Iran exporting drones to Russia is a bit of a headache for both countries, as it would be increased economic sanctions for both those countries. That's what it would mean. And it would also mean that Iran is in violation of a 2015 Iran nuclear deal too. Then in some other news, Spain is going to send generators to Ukraine to help it with its electricity crunch. So Spain will be sending 4 sets of 400 kilowatt and 1 set of 150 kilowatt electricity generators to Ukraine, as its energy infrastructure continues to be attacked by Russia in recent times. Now, I just theorized this in, I think, yesterday's or the days before video that something like this would happen, although I will concede I specified much smaller, lower powered generators for single home usage in much greater volumes instead. But who knows, perhaps a combination of the both will probably end up happening anyway. And in some other news, Russian neighbor and military ally Belarus announced today that the country is unable to repay its foreign debt due to the sanctions imposed by it, by the EU and the US on it. So this may mean Belarus may default on their debt, or Belarus will try to print more money to buy their way out of debt, which in turn leads to not just inflation but perhaps hyperinflation for them, making the money worthless both internationally and locally, where locals may then give up counting money numerically, but rather instead by starting to count money by weighing piles of cash, just like Venezuela did recently. It also causes political instability, which Lukashenko right there does not want. Governments get overthrown when these sorts of things happen, when they can't pay their debts, and a new government is installed and usually sets the record straight. And Lukashenko does not want to get overthrown or taken out of power. Because, by the way, this guy has been in power for nearly 30 years, president of Belarus. So that's right, since 1994. Truly, this characteristic is one of the biggest hallmarks of a dictatorship. In this case, a dictatorship masquerading as a democracy. But all in all, either way for this debt issue, it causes instability for the country, which is the last thing Putin wants right now with his closest ally country. Then just lastly, for the video, a bit of a lighter side of the news situation today. So I've got some footage here of a Ukrainian tractor, the heroes that they also are at it again. So they've found a way to keep the trams running on time, even amidst power disruptions caused by Russian strikes. Now, this footage was taken in Lviv, which is quite far west, right next to Poland there. But either way, it's always great to see something like this. Alright guys, so that's about it for today. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Ciao.